Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post-game live. That was a pleasant surprise. The Warriors get a 116-115 victory over the Minnesota Timberwolves at Target Center on Wednesday. Just a heads up, this will be a bit of a quicker post-game live. I've actually got to head out in about 20 to 25 minutes, but come in and have your say, as I see many people have already after Monday's loss to the Toronto Raptors, and with Draymond Green still out and Jonathan Kuminga still out and Kyle Anderson out, and the Warriors having subsequently no real power forward options and forced to play Guy Santos in a starting role there. I didn't really have too much hope for this game, it must be said. I thought, okay, we'll just lose this one against a pretty good Minnesota team and we'll move home, and that'll be the end of the four-game road trip, and we'll see what we can do against the lowly Washington Wizards later in the week. But the Warriors came out clearly with an idea in mind to try and steal this game and got out to a 34-12 lead after the opening period. I was quite shocked, as I'm sure plenty of you were, that the Warriors were able to get out to that 22-point lead. Steph Curry had 4 made threes on 4 three-point attempts in the first quarter, and the Warrior defense was stifling. Their rebounding was excellent. Just continued to pound the offensive glass over and over again. Trace Jackson-Davis ended up having 9 offensive boards for the game. It did become a bit of an issue later in the game for the Warriors, as you can understand it might be when they were missing so many of their bigger options, I suppose, and often having to go small. Steve spoke about in the post-game press conference there about Moses Moody having to having to play a lot of minutes as a 4 or a 5 and often battling Rudy Gobert. So an undersized Warrior unit, but they fought their backsides off, and credit to them. They showed a lot of ticker and ended up getting a deserved 1-point victory, albeit there was certainly some nervous moments down the stretch there as Minnesota, as you expected they would. They fought all the way back from a 22-point deficit, obviously, to tie the game with just over a minute remaining, and then Steph with that clutch corner 3, just let Naz Reid fly by and then hit that clutch corner 3 to reinstate the Golden State lead against some more nervous moments down the stretch. Few Warrior mistakes, a little turnover off an inbounds pass where they probably should have just taken a timeout and advanced the ball. Instead, GPT throws it to Moody, who then is falling out of bounds, has to throw it back to GP2, but he hadn't re-established inbounds in time, so that was a mistake. And then Steph having to inbound, I think DiVincenzo made a layup to cut the lead to 1, and then Steph inbounded the ball to GP2, and you just do not want GP2 taking free throws at the end of the game, and he made the first one, missed the second, and then Wiggins came up with a clutch offensive rebound, got it to Steph. Steph made 2 free throws, and then the lead was 4, and Anthony Edwards does make a 3 at the end to make it 1 point, but that was probably closer than what it was. The last possession there there was no threat of the Warriors losing that game in the final 5 seconds or so. So just to get into a few of your comments early here, Daniel says we're lucky to have gotten this one. GSW says defense after first quarter was horrible. Considering injuries, I like her starting Santos provided much needed energy. There was, I wouldn't say the defense was horrible. I think it's more so, just a matter of fact in the roster and the injuries that the Warriors had going into this game. No Draymond, that's clearly going to affect your defense. No Kuminga, I think he has some issues defensively, but I think he's a better defender than most on this roster. I thought the Warriors did a pretty good job, particularly on Ant. Like, Ant went for 28 points, but he was 7 of 19 shooting from the floor. I think Wiggs did a good job. I think GP2 did a good job and kind of showcased his value, as he has a couple of occasions, specifically against Edwards so far this season. Randall was disgusting. I just don't like him as a player whatsoever. I think he went 8 of 18 from the floor, has his moments, but was pretty underwhelming. It must be said from a Timberwolves perspective. So I'm not sure I have to give, the defense, yes, okay, gave up some open threes, made some mistakes, but I think all in all, given the personnel they had available, I thought it was okay. Cornelis says, if Wiggs gives us that every night, we can be much better. Just attack him and JK, collapse the defense, makes the game easier. Yeah, full credit to Wiggs, particularly late in that third quarter when Steph rested, and there was a real period there where you thought, okay, Minnesota could just come back and wipe the floor here with the Warriors and not only regain or take the lead, but also go on with it. And Wiggs managed to keep it around that 9-10 point mark. I think it was 9 that the Warriors were up 9 entering the fourth. And that late third quarter period, he just continually attacked the rim, got to the free throw line 12 times in this game, which when was the last time Andrew Wiggins took 12 free throws? It's pretty rare. Made 10 of them too. So not only got to the line, but took advantage once there. So him being able to just propel the Warrior offense during that period while Steph was off the floor was huge. And some credit, I know you guys and probably don't want me to give too much credit, but Buddy Hield helped the offense. And again, I don't like the reliance on him, but the Warriors now move to 10-0 when Buddy scores at least 18 points. He had exactly 18 in this game, 6 of 11 shooting, 3 of 6 from three-point range. So he started to make some shots, which was nice to see. And the Warriors certainly, even though Steph went for 31 and was clearly the leader, as he often is, to this victory, having Wiggs and Buddy come along for the ride, and even a guy like Moses hit some shots. I think he was 3 or 4 from 3, had 11 points. I thought Dennis was better in this game, a bit of pick and roll stuff, hit a couple of threes early, had 12 points, unfortunately fouled out with like 4 or 5 minutes to go. But all in all, a pretty positive performance, it must be said, to beat a good team on their home floor at the back end of a road trip, and particularly given the Warrior injuries. JSW says, I might be the only one thinking this, but I miss Pods. Yeah, possibly. Like, he's a connective piece. You certainly miss last year's version of Pods where he was so impactful in so many different areas, and that showed up in leading the Warriors in plus minus throughout the entire season. Thendek says, refs screwing us over. I know, I suppose Steve Kerr took that time out at the end, but I thought for a second I was wondering what Tony Brothers was doing. But look, a lot of foul calling in the second half. The game went for a bit longer than I would have liked, because I would have liked to sit here and talk for half an hour, 40 minutes on the game. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of foul calls both ways. Refs make mistakes. It's going to happen. I don't think they made too many crucial mistakes down the stretch, like in the last 3 or 4 minutes, which is big. A lot of the stuff, like the third quarter, Minnesota shot 20 free throws in the third quarter. That seemed to take forever, that period. So, it is what it is when it comes to the refereeing. FTW Clan says, I swear it feels like holding your breath watching this team trying to close out games. Yeah, it's not fun. It's not fun. And you always knew it was going to be the case. Even when the Warriors were up 22 at the end of the first, I was like, this isn't going to stay like this. Minnesota will make a run, and it'll probably end up being pretty close at the end, and it might be a 1 or 2 minute game, and that's what it was. They tied the scores with 67 seconds left, and the Warriors just thankfully managed to hold on. Thendek says, I feel like we missed GP2's energy. Yeah, probably to a degree. Like, he fights hard and he hustles, and he provides that energy, and him and Guy Santos certainly provided that. And I think when you can throw Gary out on an direct matchup in the way of Anthony Edwards, then he can be certainly very effective. But too many times this season when he has been healthy and available, that I think he's just been thrown out there without any kind of individual matchup or assignment. And to me, that's just pointless, having him out there in that, because you need him out there for his defensive impact against the world's best players. Otherwise, again, what's he doing out on the floor? He's certainly not there from an offensive standpoint. He shoots less than 20% from 3 on the season. So, look, he's a solid NBA player. Like, I don't have any qualms about Gary Payton II, but the issue is he's such a limited offensive player in on a roster that is also possessing so many other offensively limited players, particularly at the center position with Trace and Loon, and guys like Lindy Waters didn't play in this game. Am I right in saying that? I'm not saying Lindy Waters is an offensively limited player because he can shoot, although the numbers don't say he can. But Lindy Waters was the DNP coach's decision in this game. How about Moody? I know this has been a big thing in the chat for the first half of this season. Moody, 25 minutes, Waters, DNP. That's going to make a lot of people happy, because I know a lot of people get pissed when they see Waters playing like 15, 20 minutes more than Moody. This is a rare time that Moses, plays significant minutes, and Lindy doesn't play at all. So there you go. Daniel Hall says, Wiggs put us on his back in the third to keep our lead while Steph was sitting and hit clutch free throws, as I said before there. Yep. Also says, I miss pods too, but rookie pods, not sophomore pods. Jesse says, Pods was having a comeback just before he got injured. Yeah, he was shooting the ball better. He was close to like 50% over his like 5 or 6 games, I think, before he got injured. So that was a lot of the attention, obviously, I think rightly focuses on Kuminga and his injury. And the fact that came at an untimely point for him in Golden State. I think the same could be said for Pods, albeit to a lesser extent, because Kuminga was obviously going bananas and averaging 25 points a game. So hopefully we'll see Pods back soon. Thendex says, we need to go on a winning streak. It's now or never. Well, you played the Wizards on Saturday. We played the Wizards, I think, on Saturday. So that, you'd assume, will be a victory. I mean, if we can't beat the Wizards, then goodness me, what are we doing? So that'd be at least 2 wins in a row. I'm not even sure, because at the moment, you've really just got to take things one at a time. And this team could, as we saw against the Raptors the other day, they could almost lose 21. So they've got the Wizards, the Kings, the Wizards, the Celtics on their home floor, it must be said, at Chase Center, Sacramento, Chicago. Good time to make a Vucevic trade, that. The Lakers, and then Utah. So they would go in favorites in at least 3 of those 6 games, and all of them except the Kings game are at Chase Center. So 5 of the next 6 are at Chase, and they play the Bulls, Jazz, and Wizards in that stretch. So ideally, you might win like at least 4 of those games, at least. And therefore, you'd be 24 and 22. Maybe you win 5 and you go 25 and 21. And now all of a sudden, yeah, you're starting to feel a bit better about yourself, and you try and, Draymond hopefully returns, and Pods hopefully returns during this stretch. And then soon after that stretch, you hopefully get Kuminga back, and we'll see what happens in terms of any trades. So, I said it a couple of post-game live shows ago that they're actually in a far better position than they were last year, just record-wise and in the standings. Like, they were 19 and 24 after 43 games last season. There's a legitimate chance they're, 24 and 21 after 45 games this season, which is clearly a lot better. Cornell says, everyone wants to trade Loon, but Loon ball in the clutch when we need it. Yeah, it's hilarious how I still think there's a good chance that GP2 and Looney are traded before the deadline, but they actually closed this game for the Warriors, and it kind of goes down to the lack of hierarchy on the Warrior roster and the fact that almost anyone can really close games for them. Cornelius also says, Loon big rebounds and second chance points. What did he had 6 rebounds for the game. Played, yeah, like I thought he was solid. And yeah, I thought he was, a typical Looney performance, really. Young Wes says, when we're up 5, we need to find a high percentage shot, not just chuck up a 3. I'm talking about that Wiggins shot and that Wolves cut it to 1 possession game after that. I think he took that really early in the shot clock, didn't he? And I remember saying that's not a good shot. Let me just go. I'm just going back to the play-by-play here. I remember vividly saying that's not a good shot to take because it was early in the shot clock and it wasn't entirely open. I think we're talking about the one. Just double checking here. I think we're talking about the one with, there was still 3 minutes left. So the Warriors were up 105-100. Buddy Hield had just made 3 free throws. Edwards missed a layup. Peyton got the rebound, and 6 seconds into the shot clock, Wiggins took a 3. Had to get a better look than that, I think. Red Sox says, do we still rely on Buddy scoring too much? 18 points again. Yeah, absolutely we do. Absolutely. Like, he scores 18. They keep the record intact. They're now 10-0 when he goes 18 plus. But that's not a good thing, I don't think. So I don't know. I'd like them to start winning some games when he only goes for 10, 12 points or even less than that. Like, they just shouldn't be relying on him as much as they do. But I think at the moment with Kuminga out and just the lack of offensive firepower on the roster, like, he needs to be out there and he needs to be playing. And I'm not. Look, I've been very critical of the Buddy Hield minutes and play recently, and it's hard to defend them. But at no point have I said this guy needs to be a DNP, because they do need his offense and they do need his sheer shooting threat. He just needs to find a better balance and a bit higher IQ. I think the basketball IQ with Buddy Hield is something that a lot of fans, whether it be Warrior fans this season or earlier 76er Pacer Kings fans, I think that's something that people have been critical of, and just some of the shot selection and stuff like that just needs to be better. Thought he had a good game today. He played 29 minutes. I was very, very critical of the fact he played 33 minutes the other night because he played terribly on Monday against the Raptors. He really played terribly, at least in this game. Like, he played well. He was fine. Like, he was a +8. He was 6 of 11, 3 of 6, 18 points. He had 3 steals and 2 blocks as well, randomly. He's pretty engaged. So he can play it, particularly with the injuries at the moment. He can play 29 minutes. That's fine. I've got no qualms with that. But if he's had a poor first half and he clearly doesn't have it, then that's ideally where the Warrior roster would be in a stronger position to be able to just bench him for the rest of the game, essentially. Jamu says Buddy is better off the bench. This is how you start a game without the Hobbit 6'3" and under guard lineup. Yep, good point. He has been in a bench role most of the season. I think he's certainly more comfortable there. Then Nick says the third quarter really screwed us over. Ant got like 10 free throws in the third. Yep, a lot of free throws for the Timberwolves and a lot of foul calls. Schroeder got like 3 in a minute, which ultimately led him. He didn't have a foul in the first half, I don't think. I think he had all 6 fouls in the second half and fouled out with like 5 minutes to go. Quite rare. Santos, Gee probably would have played more than 21 minutes if it wasn't for his foul troubles as well. Moody had some foul troubles, but some of this stuff, particularly with Moody and Santos, that's really because they're asked to be playing up. Like, those guys are literally, like, all their fouls are pretty much coming almost on the interior because they're asked to almost be not rim protectors, but like legit interior defenders because they're being asked to play at the 4. And the Timberwolves have Rudy Gobert and they have Julius Randle and they have Naz Reid. So, what do you think of Steph's? Daniel asks, what do you think of Steph's post game after the Raptors loss? I think it was a leverage play. Like, I think it was a leverage play where he's, you can see from the Warrior performances that they're pretty desperate to do something different here, and do something different is probably via a trade. And I just think Steph didn't want to come out publicly and say, yeah, we're desperate. So he almost went the other way. Like, it was a PR play to me from him and Draymond and Steve's comments, like them just drilling out the same line of, okay, we're not going to necessarily sacrifice the future for the present. We're not going to make a bad trade that hurts the franchise moving forward. And I think that's right to a degree, but I think people have gone too far with taking those comments and saying, oh, that means the Warriors aren't going to give up any of their young players or picks. No, I think they will if the right deal comes along. And I think what Steph said, I think that was more a case of, hey, I'm not going to come out and say we're desperate to make a move, because that just completely limits and negates whatever trade leverage we have in negotiations with other teams. Because all of a sudden, if you're in talks with Chicago about Vucevic or whatever, and Steph Curry's just come out and said, oh, we desperately need to make a move, this roster isn't it, blah blah blah, then Chicago are going to be like, all right, pony up a first round pick, pony up Moses Moody, maybe give us something else, and really ask for the world, rather than the Warriors trying to come from a higher place in terms of leverage. Cornell says, I don't miss Ports. He gets too many minutes. To me, he will always be a role player trading for a big point guard that can shoot, or a big shooting guard. Gamer FTP says, do you think Buddy should be closing? No, not ideally. No. I don't think Buddy Hield's a closing caliber player. Now, in certain situations, yes, maybe, like when you desperately need offense, and if your roster is really struggling and depleted, as the Warriors have been the last couple of games, then okay, I can understand it. But if this roster is fully healthy, there is no way Buddy Hield should be closing. Jamu says, Santos brings the hustle, which really helps our team. Energy is infectious, like Steph's crazy threes. Yeah, I agree with that. I just thought the Warriors were really impressive early. Like, they could have easily, I as a fan pretty much rolled over and said, yeah, we're losing this game, let's move on. It would have been fairly easy at the back end of a 4-game road trip for the players to do the same. And they came out with energy, intensity, crashed the glass, played hard on defense, and built a 22-point lead, which was ultimately enough to stave off the Timberwolves at the end. So full credit to them. Gamer FTP says, Santos and Moody are hungry. Got to love that energy. Jamu agrees that Buddy should never close unless he's been hot in the game. Gamer FTP says, do you know what Dante that Dante scores threes over Buddy in the fourth. Buddy always gets lost on screens. Dante had a good game, 9 of 19, felt more efficient than that, 6 of 12 on threes, 28 points. 6 rebounds, 9 assists. That's a massive game. I'd love him on the Warriors. I think he's the closest thing to Melton that would be nice to have next to Steph. But unfortunately, it's not going to be the case. And unfortunately, well, not unfortunately because the Warriors won the game, but the game nearly got taken away by Dante DiVincenzo. They're 28, 6, and 9. That is huge. Alrighty, guys. I better probably finish it up there. Thank you very much to those of you that have tuned in live, or if you're watching afterwards on the live stream, or if you're listening via the podcast feed. Because if this has been a short episode, I might be back in the next couple of days for a podcast episode before Saturday's game against the Wizards, and then a post-game live after that game against Jordan Poole and Washington. Let's hope the Warriors can get back over a 500 record, having got back to 500 now at an exact 20-20 on the season. Again, pleasantly surprised, 116-115 victory over the Timberwolves. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that'd be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at POK252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. Also on TikTok and Instagram, Golden State with Mates. You can follow my writing as well over on bluemanhoop.com. Thank you very much to everyone again for tuning in.